Statue of Liberty Acrylic Nail Art Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish. Hi everyone! In today's video I'm going to be doing a three-dimensional Statue of Liberty acrylic nail art design, and it's quite a bit of work and it is a little bit time consuming, but as long as you're patient and you work through the process, it's not as hard as it looks. So I hope you give it a try, and don't forget to click subscribe to see my future videos as well. For the background of this design, I'm going to have a gradient from red to white to blue. So I'm going to start with the red near the cuticle, and then I'm going to be placing that bead, patting it up towards the cuticle, and then brushing it down. And if it goes past the area you want it to, don't worry about it, because we're just going to add a couple layers and then blend them together until they look right. So then I'm going to add some blue at the tip and blend it up. And then I'm going to add white in the center, blend it down, and then blend the white up. I think it's a lot easier to do the two outside colors and then do the one in the middle, instead of trying to do red and then blend it into white and then blend it into blue. I think it goes a little smoother if you try to do the ones on the outside and then worry about the center. And then I'm going to add a layer of this clear chunky glitter just over the design. That's going to help hide any imperfections in your gradient. And all of these layers, you're going to want to try to keep them as thin as possible, because this whole thing is going to get really thick if you don't try to keep your layers thin, because you're going to have that gradient, then the glitter, and now we're going to be encasing it with a layer of clear acrylic. So just keep everything as thin as you possibly can, just so that the whole nail doesn't get super heavy. So I'm going to add the clear acrylic down. This is going to help protect the glitter and also give the nail a decent amount of strength. So now I'm going to be filing it with a 180 grit file, and this is just to remove any lumps, bumps, and imperfections, but try not to file through that top layer of clear into the glitter layer, because then you're going to ruin your glitter. And I'm going to be buffing it with a 240 grit padded buffer. Apply a layer of gel sealer, and then cure it. So now with a moss green acrylic, I'm going to be sculpting my Statue of Liberty. And so I'm going to start by just creating sort of this pancake, so just this really flat area that is the outside shape of the Statue of Liberty, and then we can go through and build it up so that it's got the nice height dimensions. But for the beginning, just worry about the outline, the outside shape. So I'm going to start with her head, and then I'm going to add her robed body beneath it, and then next to her head I'm going to add her arm that's going to be holding the torch, which I'll add later on. I'm just going to add her sleeve that goes around her arm right now, just so that I got that in there. And then her other shoulder. And then I'm going to be adding the area that has all of those little rays of sunshine on her crown. So I'm going to put down a wet bead of this green acrylic, and then I'm going to stretch it out and pull it into my 7 little triangles that are, this is probably the most difficult part, getting these little sections of acrylic pulled out. And so you have to make sure that you work with wet acrylic so that it stretches easy, and you also have to make sure that it's that you only put down a tiny amount and work with small sections at a time, so it doesn't get too hard on you too fast. And then I'm going to be adding her face. So I'm going to thicken up her face, and then I'm just going to go through and start adding some of those thicker areas with more of the acrylic. And so after I did her face, I'm just going to go through and add some of the wrinkles on her robe. And so I'm going to start with this one that kind of goes across her chest like a sash, and then she's got this ruffly layer that's down probably around her knees. And then add another layer just like that one that's down right around her feet. And then add the little base that the statue is on across the bottom of the nail. And so now I'm going to be sculpting her arm. So I'm just going to add like an elbow, so this bent shape on the side. And now I'm going to be working on adding the tablet. And so I'm going to place down a bead of that green acrylic and then pat it out into a flat shape and then square off the sides. You don't really have to worry about making sure that the side that's closest to her body has a nice square line, but if it does, that's just a bonus. But I would worry about the other ones first and then go to that one at the end if it is still wet enough that you can manipulate it, because it is going to get covered up anyway, because you want it to look like the tablet and her arm are a little bit behind her, so there's this layer of robe that kind of goes across it. And then add her hand. And then I'm going to add some more thickness to the sleeve of the arm that's raised. And then when you're creating these wrinkles, just let it set for half a second just so it sort of starts to turn matte, and then you can press the side of your brush into it just to create those lines that you're looking for. And I'm going to add some thickness to her hair. And when you're doing this, don't do her face and then her hair right away. Try to leave some time between those sections that are right next to each other so that the first one you did has a chance to set so that you won't ruin it by adding the next one. Which I'm kind of going against what I just said right now because I'm going to add that top of her, or that base of her crown at this moment. But her hair was set enough, so it works. But if you went just from her face to those little sections of hair that frame her face, you'd probably end up denting her face and it wouldn't look as good in the end. And to do the area of her crown that I'm working on now, I just placed a bead down and then just sort of wrapped it around her face. And now I'm going to be adding her torch. I'm going to start by adding a bead and then flattening off the top and pulling it down in the center for the handle part. And then adding a small bead and pulling it up into just sort of like a little Hershey's Kiss shape for the flame. So now I'm going to dilute some white paint and I'm going to be highlighting my Statue of Liberty on all of the higher points. So all those sections that seem to be raised up a little higher, so some of the wrinkles on her face, and the tablet, pretty much every area that you want to really be seen, you're going to want to highlight. And then I'm going to be adding some details with black. So now if those little points on her crown weren't perfect before, this is a really good area to try to fix them up by just creatively adding black lines to make them thinner or thicker where you need them to be. And so now I'm going to be also going over some of the important outlines on her, so around her face and then through some of those wrinkles, really just to make them pop and make them really super visible. I'm going to outline the tablet and her hand. And a little bit on the torch. And then add her facial features, so add her nose and the bridge of her nose that connects up to her eye, her other eye, and her mouth. Cover her torch, the actual flame, with gold, and then apply a layer of matte top coat over your Statue of Liberty. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this design. Please share any recreations with me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I would really love to see them, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!